Have you ever wondered how deep tech companies actually start? Well, we were too.
So in this podcast, we'll be interviewing scientists and entrepreneurs that have taken their ideas out of the lab and turned them into startups. I'm Antonia.
And I'm Christina, and this is Startup the Science. This podcast is brought to you by Enam Berlin, the Innovation Network for Advanced Materials, bringing together the brightest minds in material science. Visit us at enam.berlin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Startup the Science. So today we are going to talk to two wonderful, charming Italian men.
Italiano,
yes. You will hear the accent.
Yeah.
You won't be able to avoid it even if you don't want to hear it. So they come from a startup that we love, FLEEP Technologies. I think they're rebranding it now to FLEEP Tech. So we love these guys. We met them during AdmaCom where they successfully participated and won some prizes.
Ferdinand Bartel's episode 3 of season 2, Startup the Science, mentions FLEEP Tech as one of his favorites. I don't want to say that word.
He had a really hard time picking favorites, though,
Yeah.
but he did mention FLEEP, and we can totally understand why. They're very professional. In fact, you will hear how very, very professional they are in this episode, because even though we tried to make them laugh and joke around,
Their normal selves, I think.
yeah.
They didn't.
But it's okay. It's because they took this podcast very seriously and they decided to be their most professional selves. Anyway, you will hear the serious side of Paolo and Giorgio today. But if you want to get to know them better, I'm sure you can visit them in Milan. They can take you out for a nice
Gelato,
aperitivo, pizza, pasta,
Yep.
all the good stuff.
Yum.
Yum.
I'm hungry.
While Christina goes to eat.
Oh, wait. We forgot to mention one thing. Paolo's fired.
Oh, yeah. So there is an awkward joke that will take you by surprise in the middle of this episode where Giorgio says that he can fire Paolo. And we just like to let everyone know that nobody got fired during the recording of this episode. It's just an inside joke that went too far. That's a long disclaimer. Anyway, let's get started. Here's Paolo and Giorgio from FLEEP Tech. So today we're talking to FLEEP Technologies, and we have two of their team members here with us today. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Hi guys, everybody. Hi, I'm Giorgio and I'm the CEO of FLEEP Technologies.
And I am Paolo and the lead engineer on FLEEP Technologies.
Great, nice to have you here. So FLEEP sounds fun. What does it stand for?
So it's an acronym of a flexible large area electronics enabling platform.
Flexible Large Areas Enabling Platform.
Electronics.
Sorry, two E's. Okay, good. Got it. Okay, explain that in more detail for us.
Yes. So actually we print transistors and all devices that are needed to realize large area electronics. So the concept of FLEEP is really into the realization of a process for completely plastic electronics. So actually we don't do any kind of silicon electronics and standard processing. Indeed, we use printing and only polymers to realize micro-integrated circuits.
And I know you guys have already got some traction and won some awards, and people are excited about your technology. Why is that? What's so special about what you do?
Actually, we don't know, but I mean, no.
That's a very honest answer.
Yeah,
Let's go for the sales pitch answer.
Being serious. Yes, actually, we are one of the very few companies that can handle this kind of electronics. So there are very few companies worldwide who are actually doing flexible electronics. And we kind of have something that it's a difference between the others, and it's the use of only printing techniques to realize this kind of electronics. So it's more scalable.
So everything you do is printed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
And that is scalable for obvious reasons, because you could print everything. How are people doing it now? How are your competitors doing it instead?
So most of the companies that are our competitors are mostly taking standard silicon processes and just porting them onto standard wafers or glass wafer where they put some flexible substrate. So the real deal is that doing with printing, you actually have a lower setup cost for the fab, and also you can really handle very high volumes. So, I mean, the cost structures will be very different in the end from what is standard electronics and also the competitors' ones.
Why are they not doing what you're doing then if it's so much better? What's your
Because actually
secret?
it's really hard to realize everything printed. So we spent 7 years of research doing that and trying to optimize everything printed. And yes, actually we are now at a stage where we can say that this can go to the market.
7 years. You've been doing this for 7 years?
Yes, it was actually my PhD subject.
Okay.
And so I started as a master thesis student in Italian Institute of Technology in Milan. And then I kept going just around and going and going. And in the end, we got one commercial project with one huge multinational companies of the electronics sector. And that was the moment when I realized that actually it was probably the case to bring it to the market because it was something really interesting.
So you've been researching and working on this for 7 years, but the company is not 7 years old.
No, actually not. We've been founded in May 2019. So actually...
Super recent. The company's a baby. That's cute.
Yeah, it's really cute.
So what's the story of your company setup? How did that all come about?
So yes, I was telling you, actually we started everything with one commercial project with this multinational company. And so they came to us asking for a very specific question, actually a problem to solve. We cannot disclose of that. It was really interesting into the biomedical sector. So actually it was a biomedical packaging application. After that, actually, we started working a lot onto the scaling the process and just trying to find ways to change some parts of the process so that it will have been more scalable. So once we got to a very, very good point, I got the opportunity to go to the United States to study entrepreneurship as a Fulbright scholar at Santa Clara University. And I had to find somebody that could just take in for me in the lab. And this was Paolo.
So yeah, I made my master thesis work with Giorgio, and then I learned almost anything in the lab. And so Giorgio left me the work when he was out from Italy, and I continued it. Yeah, and in the end, when he was back, we decided to found FLEEP. So the idea was born like that, and then after some month of setup of anything, we was able in May to found it.
Okay, so you guys have actually been working together for a much longer time.
Yeah, it's more or less 3 years. 3 years.
3 years. So you were always his boss.
Yeah, for now. I can fire him.
And I can fire him too.
It's a mutually firing situation going on here. Very good. And so you mentioned that the first project you worked on, or the first commercial project, was because a company came to you and asked you to develop a solution. How did that happen? Did they just know you? Was it part of your network? Or how did this contract come about?
Actually, it was totally by chance. It happened that one of the lead program developer of this multinational company was a PhD in electronics, where also the PI of the printed and molecular electronics group was PhD. And so actually they met just by chance. And actually this company was looking for a new technology that could solve this specific problem, biomedical packaging. And they asked us for just some consultancy. And after that, that's how it started. Of course, we added into the consultancy our technology because it was valuable as well.
So can you give us some more examples of how your technology could be applied? What kind of problems could it solve? Or I was going to say create, but I'm sure it doesn't create any problems. What problems does it solve?
Yes, actually, there are many problems that this technology solves. And the first one is, of course, that electronics is more or less everywhere now. And there is a huge need of a technology that can solve the easiness, to make it easier to integrate these electronics into products. So the first key point is actually, up to now, every object that integrates electronics is built around the electronics. So if you imagine just a touch screen, actually, or if you have one of those cafeteria tables that are now interactive and have a touch screen inside, actually, they have to build a table around the electronics. In this way, we can actually print everything on a very thin piece of plastic and then put onto the table this kind of electronics and make it a smart surface.
So if we imagine a surface, any surface that we have, for instance, in our home now that is not that smart, maybe a table, we could make that into a smarter object by using your technology instead of thinking of the smart surface first and then building the table around it. Would that be accurate? Okay.
Yeah. Secondly, there is one other key point that is the environmental aspect of electronics. Actually, we are thinking a lot about what is Internet of Things nowadays and how it has to develop. And there are some forecasts that say that by 2026, we should have 75 billion of connected objects everywhere in the world. And actually, nobody's really thinking about how to dispose of them. And there is a lot of e-waste. So we are talking about various hundreds, thousands of million tons.
What happens now with all this waste? Where does it go?
Actually, usually it's just taken apart in some recycle center around cities. And then what cannot be just recycled is taken, put onto huge ships that just go into Indonesia, Thailand, and China and create these huge e-waste cities. So it's actually a really big problem.
So we're talking about all the electronic devices that are at the end of their life cycle. Any phones, screens, anything, any kind of device.
Screens, yes. The difference here is that actually we propose an electronics that is completely made by polymers. So there's no silicon in that. There's no rare earth materials or something similar. And so this is recyclable as well. So we're talking about printed and recyclable electronics.
So at the end of the life cycle of a phone, for example, it could be taken apart and then the components could be recycled.
Yes.
The components that you would produce.
Yes, as well.
Right. Well, that's cool. That's even something we can understand.
Yeah,
So
but
that's-
if you think about it, this opens up a lot of other opportunities. So, for example, I mean, the electronics world is talking a lot since years about the possibility to make packaging interactive, and there is a very small chance to really do that with standard electronics. And the first reason is that every object where you put a silicon chip, it just becomes special waste, and so it's not recyclable anymore. Most of the packaging is, for now and unlikely, mostly plastic. But if we want to add some interaction to this kind of packaging, we have no chance nowadays, and FLEEP can be the chance.
Right. So we've actually had a couple of startups in our first season talk about interactive packaging. And we've been trying to imagine this futuristic way of packaging things. It sounds fun and exciting for advertising especially. But I would like to know, are there also some very useful cases of this interactive packaging, other than that they'd be, you know, fun and gadgety and flashy? Can you think of a useful for society kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely yes. So if you take, for example, medical devices, and packaging for medical devices is really needed. For example, the people need to monitor how much drugs do they take, when do they take it.
Okay, so the dosage of their medication would be on the package.
Not only the dosage, but also the time when it happened, how long ago it happened.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah.
So this is one of those applications where the FLEEP technologies can really be
useful. Okay, well, that's exciting. So let's talk a little bit about your company, your team. How far along are you in your life as a company?
So yes, as we were saying before, actually we are pretty young. We are just a few months old.
Yeah.
We don't say the number.
That can be confusing depending on when this episode airs as well.
Yes, very, very few months old. And actually, the team, we built a team thinking about what was really needed for the company at this stage. So actually, it's me and Paolo. So I have a PhD in electronics, and as I told before, a Fulbright scholarship in entrepreneurship. And Paolo instead is a material scientist. Part of the team are, of course, Mario, that is the PI of the research group where everything started in the end. Also, there is Yari and Matteo, who are really helping us. So they were, you can see them anyway as investors because they believed in us at the beginning of FLEEP, and they just started working with us and setting up the company, letting us understand what was all about business development, product development, road mapping, fundraising, etc. And so, yes, we started like this.
So you have a team of 5 people?
Yes.
And you plan to grow a lot in the future, I'd imagine.
Yes, actually, currently we are trying to close our first fundraise for a seed round in Italy. And we plan that if we secure all the funds, we will grow by 5 more people.
Wow, so you would double your team.
Yeah, more or less.
And are you planning to, so you're mainly focused on Italy at the moment or not necessarily? Are your clients in other countries as well?
So yes, most of the clients for now are multinational companies because they are usually the ones that are really interested in understanding where this kind of technology can go. And so we mostly do proof of concept projects for them and feasibility studies. We are not really so much focused on Italy. We wanted to start from Italy, and we know that we want to keep some R&D there because it's actually where everything started, and we want that something stays there. But we also, of course, going a lot around, like here at ADMACOM
I was hoping you would get to
in
that.
Berlin, and also in the US. So we just came out of 2 accelerator programs in California.
Which one was your favorite accelerator program so far?
Of course,
I'm
ADMACOM.
joking.
For sure.
Shameless.
Shameless plug-in. Sorry, please continue.
So yes, we just came out from these 2 accelerators in the US. There was Berkeley Skydeck and Plug and Play. Of course, we are not focused only on Italy, and we are really open to understand whether to move also some offices here in Germany or there in the US.
So clearly, by listening to you, we all understand that you are very business-minded, and you also have the technical background behind you. You might have touched on this already at the beginning of the conversation, but I kind of want to understand what were the triggers to make you say, oh yeah, I'm going to take this idea out of the lab and turn it into FLEEP.
So yes, I guess it must be a combination of 2 things. The first was my attitude to applied research and not to basic research. And secondly, the fact that I've seen interest coming from corporates, and so that was just started making me think that it might be a startup, might be something that we actually sell. But since the starting point where I first thought this till really doing that was probably 3 years.
3 years, okay. And what's the biggest difference, would you say, between being a researcher and now being a startup founder? I'm sure there are many.
The hours that you have to work per day.
That's for sure. And
To work more is what you want.
also on how you look at your technology, because it's really different, because the technology you develop during research is your child, and you really love it, but you cannot be, so straightforward with yourself and say, maybe this is not great for the market. And so there is this huge word that approaches you, and is market. It's market. What is the market? Why do I need a market for my technology that is so nice and I really love it? And so yes, you need to forget your love for your technology.
Okay. So you have to be a bit emotionally detached.
Yeah.
Okay. So now your technology is not your baby anymore?
Yeah, it is, of course. But so it's really hard to detach, but in some way you need to.
And so you both have a technical background. Do you find it hard to transition to the business world? How did you get your super smart business skills?
I don't think we have still super smart business skills, but
your business skills, let's just call them that.
we are developing them. So the Fulbright master I did, actually, it was a really great opportunity to start understand what was going around. So I had the opportunity to start my business background in what we can call probably the home of business. Mm-hmm. So it's Silicon Valley, and it was really, really interesting to understand how they think about business. But coming back, I was also understanding that in Europe it's very, very different. So yes, so it's really interesting.
Approach. Yeah, that's great. And it is definitely different. And right before talking to you, we actually talked to the only American startup that we had in ADMACOM, and we were asking him the same thing. What's the difference between the US and Europe, and are you finding a lot of differences? And he said that yes, basically, in a word, they're kind of different worlds altogether. Are you finding it hard, for example, to explain to investors what you guys do? Because that's also another common trend we see, that in Europe there tends to be maybe more attention given to software or easier to explain startups than to deep tech.
So I have to admit that the only place where I feel comfortable talking about my technology, not thinking about of not being understood, it's Germany. Because here is where printed electronics started and is more developed overall in the world. It's very nice anyway going to Silicon Valley and seeing on very experienced C-level people that what you're proposing is not known, but you can never understand if it never just didn't reach there or just because it's so new. Actually, for now, we are not having so much trouble explaining to investor what we do. I mean, I'm really sorry for who's listening, but actually showing the sample will be much better and just makes everybody understand on a single site what we're doing.
Yeah, we can confirm that. Once you see the sample, it's much more obvious, that's for sure. So there seems to be a common theme among many startups we talk to that you've actually started working on your technology years before you founded the company. And it usually starts in a university context. Exactly as you said, you were working on it during your master's and then PhD. But I suppose there are also many scientists that never start a company, right? What would be your words of wisdom for scientists that might be working on a project that could be commercialized, but maybe don't have the risk-taking attitude necessary to start a company?
So I would suggest just not being overprotective with your project and not think about it with something that somebody can easily steal. Because if it's your project and it's your child, as I just said, you really know everything about that. Yes, if you feel that you don't have the passion for going to the business side, find somebody who does. There are many scientists who just don't like doing just basic research, and they really like a lot just trying to understand how to make scientific things work in the real world and not just only in the lab.
So find someone like Paolo, for example.
I guess, yeah,
more or less.
Find a partner. Okay, well, thanks a lot, guys, for your words of wisdom and generally for everything you've told us today. Is there anything else you would like to say in the end? Any websites you'd like to promote? Any requests from our listeners?
Yes, of course. We want to promote FLEEP Technologies. So come visit us.
What's your website?
If you guys have a lot of millions to invest, we are here.
We do get a lot of emails from our listeners saying they have a lot of millions to invest.
So please come to us. So the website is fleeptech.com. So FLEEP with 2 E.
We'll put it in the description. We promise.
There will be a link, we promise. Great. Thanks a lot for coming to our podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to Start Up the Science.
If you like our show and want to know more about what we do, check out our website at inam.berlin.
And don't forget to leave us a review. Until next time.